Who is Jared Kushner? Before we kind of get into that, I do want to, at the very least, this is a good pause moment, see what people are saying in the chat. What is good, Daily? Someone said, "Can you get my food?" He's being a little racist to me. Hey, man, appreciate the comment, though. We don't get sensitive out here. Someone says, "To achieve what they want, you end up with rights that exist on paper but aren't enforced. The judiciary has said these things are against the Constitution. The executive is ignoring them, mostly because the executive has taken over and dismantled the enforcement agencies, the DOJ, Amy, I think that says Army, either Amy or Army leadership, corporate and human trafficking division, CDC, and equal rights / DEI. I got to go, but good luck trying to reclaim the people's government, tax the billionaires when you're not poor. People won't turn on each other. And man, I hear what you're saying. They're definitely dismantling a lot of these places. And now they're trying to implement policies like Schedule F to turn these people into normal workers where they have no rights and the president could just fire whoever the fuck he wants in the executive branch. And then someone says, ICE is doing what they need to do. Okay, you are stupid. All right, let's continue to our next talking point. What is good, Austin? Who is Jared Kushner? Now, my fascination, before we get into the nitty gritty on why I wanted to talk about this, my fascination with understanding who Jared Kushner is, because I found it kind of odd that this individual, who's for the most part like a businessman, had such high profile political positions. And anytime there was an international conflict with foreign leaders, Donald Trump would send Jared Kushner to negotiate, to mediate. Why? Who is this guy? Why is a businessman dealing with some of the most important international political conflicts in the world? Does he have that expertise, or is there something else going on? I heard something very interesting from someone before. This person brought up the fact that Jared Kushner, what is actually going on is not the toning down de-escalation of a political mediator who knows how to negotiate between foreign leaders. What's actually going on is a brokerage, a deal making that is taking place between Jared Kushner, Donald Trump, and very powerful people. It's not about political negotiation. It's about financial ones. And I want to see if that truly is the case. So let's talk about this guy. Jared Curry Kushner, who was born January 10th, 1981, is an American businessman, real estate investor, and son-in-law of President Donald Trump. Shout out nepotism. DEI is not okay, but nepotism is. You love to see it. Through his marriage to Ivanka Trump in 2009. He was raised in a modern Orthodox Jewish family in Livingston, New Jersey, and his paternal grandparents were Holocaust survivors from Belarus who came to the U.S. in 1949. Kushner graduated from Harvard in 2003 with a degree in government. His father reportedly donated $2.5 million to Harvard before Jared was admitted. That's another conversation altogether. The ability for very wealthy people to invest some money in these institutions for one reason or the other, trying to get their kid inside the school with potential privileges. Hey man, DEI, affirmative action, they're not okay, but rich people paying for their child's education and influencing the college directly with donations, that's perfectly fine, ladies and gentlemen. That is perfectly fine. And he also earned a JD/MBA from NYU by 2007. At just 25, he took over the family real estate business, Kushner Companies. And his father, Charles Kushner, was convicted in 2005 on 18 federal charges, including tax evasion, illegal campaign contributions, and witness tampering. Trump pardoned. Oh my God, who was surprised that he pardoned a criminal? Trump pardoned Charles in 2020 and appointed him U.S. ambassador to France in 2025. So another corrupt individual, another corrupt businessman, another corrupt person who is influencing politics gets a pardon from Donald Trump because nepotism. Love to see it. Before entering politics, Kushner was a lifelong Democrat who donated to Democratic campaigns starting at age 11. I don't know how you're donating to Democratic campaigns at age 11, but that's when you have that. You have money. You have money. He also donated to Hillary Clinton in 2008. So you guys can see as I talk about Jared Kushner, I'm giving the entire history, even his relationships with Democrats. Purple Political Breakdown, ladies and gentlemen. I just taught the facts out here, regardless of affiliation. He purchased the New York Observer newspaper in 2006 for $10 million and made the infamous $1.8 billion purchase of 666 Fifth Avenue building in Manhattan in 2007, a deal that nearly bankrupted the family company after the 2008 financial crash. During Trump's 2016 campaign, Kushner was the architect of Trump's digital strategy, running a 100-person social media team called Project Alamo, that Facebook's top advertising executive called the single best digital ad campaign he's ever seen. He was seen as the de facto campaign manager and even helped hire Cambridge Analytica alongside Paul Manafort and Brad Parscale. Former Google CEO Eric Schmidt said Kushner essentially ran the campaign with minimal resources. From 2017 to 2021, Kushner served as senior advisor to the president in Trump's first administration, where he led the effort on the First Step Act, a criminal justice reform, and was the primary architect of the Abraham Accords, normalizing relations between Israel and the UAE, Bahrain, and Morocco, and brokered the USMCA trade deal. He also played a controversial role in Trump's COVID-19 response, reportedly advising Trump that the media was exaggerating the threats of the virus. So that is some general knowledge, some general background information of the guy. Let's get in a little bit more specifics. After leaving the White House in 2021, Kushner founded Affinity Partners, a private equity firm that has raised a total of $4.6 billion in funding. A massive portion of this money comes from Middle East sovereign wealth funds, including a $2 billion investment from Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, the PIF, which was approved despite concerns from the fund's own advisory panel about the firm's management and track record. In September 2025, Forbes estimated Kushner's net worth at just over $1 billion, making him a newly minted member of the Billionaire Club. His wealth comes from Affinity Partners, now worth $215 million, up from $170 million, a $560 million stake in Kushner Companies, a 10% stake in Israeli finance services firm Phoenix, which he says returned more than 9 times the initial investment, in a Florida home that has tripled in value since 2020. Additional major investors in Affinity Partners include the Qatari Sovereign Wealth Fund and Lunate, a subsidiary of the business empire of the Noun bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the national security advisor for the UAE and brother to the current UAE president. These are the same Gulf state governments Kushner is now negotiating with as a peace envoy, which is the core of the ethics and conflict of interest debate surrounding him. So a lot of money is connected to a lot of the negotiations going on regarding Kushner and these leaders. Kushner has dismissed the conflict of interest criticism directly, saying on 60 Minutes, what people call conflicts of interest, Steve Witkoff and I call experienced and trusted relationships that we have throughout the world. The White House also dismisses ethnic criticisms, with officials saying Kushner was critical to financing deals because of deep relationships built through the Abraham Accords. However, former U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Daniel Shapiro, said it's fair to ask whether Kushner should be doing diplomacy with countries where he's also doing business. It also raises the question, and this also makes me concerned of the hypocrisy and the double standard. If we want to remove the concept of the deep state, the reason why this was a big conversation in the first place is people thought a lot of very wealthy people, the infamous name George Soros, was influencing Democratic campaigns, Democratic elections, and Democratic leaders. And I think we all can agree regarding potential lobbying and if it's getting done ethically, or if it's the acclaim insider trading that people bring up. Money can influence our politics. Money has influenced our politics, and money can corrupt our politics. So if people had that intuition about Democrats coming into this election, the fact that they are blinded, they don't see anything. They're acting like freaking what's her name that can't see anything or hear anything? You know who I'm talking about. Stevie Wonder. I'm just going to use someone else entirely. They're like Stevie Wonder and completely blind to the very clear conflict of interest going on with billionaires and international leaders that is right in front of their face with actual verifiable evidence to say that there is a relationship there. I find that odd. Um, Continuing on, notably, Phoenix Holdings, the Israeli firm Affinity invested in, maintains investments in companies listed on a UN blacklist of firms operating in occupied Palestinian territories, creating another layer of concern about Kushner's financial interests intersecting with his diplomatic role on Gaza and Middle East peace. Is the Board of Peace really there to create peace for Palestinians? Or is there another incentive that is completely different? Let's keep on going. In February 2024, Kushner publicly said he would not join a second Trump administration, telling Axios, "My desire at this phase of my life is to focus on my firm." Despite this, he was gradually pulled back into Trump's orbit, first as a volunteer advisor with no formal governmental title, and then increasingly as a key negotiator. He holds no official position in the government, receives no salary, and was not confirmed by the Senate, and is not subject to federal ethics rules. Yet he sits on meetings with heads of states and leads high-stakes diplomatic negotiation. This guy is not a part of the government. He does not have to be held to the standards of being part of the government, but he's on Board of Peace boards and negotiating for foreign leaders in behalf of Trump. Are we connecting the pieces a little bit? Is things starting to turn like, whoa, what the hell's going on with this Jared Kushner guy? This is kind of weird, I'm not gonna lie. On February 19, 2026, Trump formally announced at the inaugural Board of Peace meeting that Kushner would receive an Envoy of Peace designation, placing him on par with Steve Witkoff, who already holds the title of Special Envoy. The White House later clarified this would not be an official government position. Trump said, "We're making Jared also envoy of peace. They're both envoys of peace." The announcement came at an event attended by more than a dozen world leaders. Kushner and Witkoff together represent what the media has called Trump's diplomacy without diplomats approach, sidelining the State Department and National Security Council in favor of two wealthy real estate developers with personal relationships in the region. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was notably absent from key negotiations in Geneva and has not participated in the shuttle diplomacy, prompting criticism that traditional American diplomatic institutions are being bypassed entirely for individuals like Jared Kushner, who can't be held accountable. He can't be held accountable. It's insane. What's the point of all these other people that you are hiring a part of your cabinet? Well, they're going to do what actually is in the best interests of the people. They're actually going to do things that is within the bounds of government. You don't want that. You don't need that. That's not going to help the pockets, that wallet. So what is actually going on? Kushner and Witkoff have earned nicknames from the countries they negotiate with. Russians call them Witkoff and Zaitkov, or Zaitkov. Weird. I don't know how to say that in Russian properly, because Zait is Russian for son-in-law. So they call him Witkoff and son-in-law, while Iranians call Kushner Donald Trump, or Damad Trump, the Persian word for son-in-law. So all of them just call Jared Kushner the son-in-law. And I hate to do the whataboutism, but I love consistency. And it's very glaring that people who were very upset about Hunter Biden, right, and the stuff that went on with Burisma, isn't this Jared Kushner stuff way worse than what Hunter Biden was doing? I'm just asking questions. Some foreign policy experts say the duo lacks the depth of knowledge to go up against veteran negotiators like Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi, while others credit their unconventional approach for getting talks to happen at all. Yawn. Yeah, the fuck right. We ain't giving brownie points. We ain't giving second place trophies. We ain't giving participation rewards. We don't live in that era. Stop being a bitch. The Citizens for Ethics campaign group raised the core questions publicly. Jared Kushner is a private citizen who has billions investments from foreign governments. He has no formal role in the Trump administration and is not subject to any ethics rule. So why is he meeting with Israel's president alongside the president and two cabinet secretaries? The big questions, right? The big questions. So, what is going on with the border peace? What's going on with Gaza? What is the master plan with Jared Kushner? At the World Economic Forum in Davos, January 2026, Kushner unveiled a $25 to $30 billion master plan for Gaza's reconstruction, envisioning the Strip as a regional economic hub by 2035 with 180 mixed-use coastal towers, 100,000 housing units in Rafah, a new port and airport, data centers, industrial zones, and a target to raise Gaza's GDP to over $10 billion. Critics have called this the Vegasification of Gaza, noting the plan was designed without any Palestinian input and treats Gaza as a vacant real estate rather than a place when existing communities, historical sites, and 2 billion displaced residents live. Are you starting to see the vision? Are you starting to connect the pieces? Yeah, a lot of money in certain areas in Palestine, territories. Are they doing this to help the Palestinians, or are they doing this to raise the value of the areas there? What makes the more logical sense regarding a guy with no official role who doesn't have to be held under ethical principles, whose only negotiation power is Munyon? The plan is tied to Trump's Board of Peace, a new international body chaired by Trump himself that includes Kushner, Witkoff, Secretary of State Rubio, billionaire Mark Rowan, World Bank President Ajay Banga, and former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair. At the February 19th Board of Peace meeting, Trump claimed $7 billion in commitments from member countries, with the U.S. pledging $10 billion. However, no Palestinian representatives were in attendance, and there were few details on how funds would actually be used or who would oversee them. Kushner is an obvious financial conduit in this arrangement. His private equity firm Affinity Partners already manages billions from the same Gulf states being asked to fund Gaza's reconstruction. A New Yorker expose reported that Trump family has monetized the presidency to the tune of $4 billion so far, and reports indicate American billionaires like Larry Ellison and Peter Thiel are looking for new tax-free areas and simple regulation in the reconstruction zone, with some contractors claiming 300% profit from an inside track to the Trump administration. You see what's going on here? Is it making more sense to you what they are trying to do, what they want to do with Gaza? Kushner previously made controversial comments suggesting Israel should bulldoze something in the Negev and move people in there from Gaza, adding, "You can go in and finish the job." Although Trump's 20-point peace plan, now erasing Gaza's existing urban fabric, has been widely criticized as ethnic cleansing by another name, with no mention of Palestinian statehood, property rights, or self-determination. A separate governance body, the National Committee for the Administration of Gaza, the NCAGZ, or the NCAG, consists of 15 unelected Palestinian technocrats who will handle day-to-day operations but report to the Board of Peace, meaning the real financial and legal authority stays with Trump-aligned figures. European leaders and the Arab Center DC have warned that this model risks profiteering and graft at the expense of a vulnerable population, and that Gaza's reconstruction could become more about enriching connected insiders than helping Palestinians. I will say that to kind of provide at the very least a little bit nuance, there is something to be said in like really enriching an area And I think even though I dislike it, and I know many people dislike it, there's no doubt that pouring a lot of money in the area to raise its value can take away something from that area and maybe displace some people, but the area will change moving forward and may become a more peaceful place. However, in this situation, in terms of raising its value, putting more money in it to turn it into something else, it's very clear that their incentive for me, my alleged opinion, my implied opinion based off the contextual circumstantial evidence is that they only care about this place for profit. And if profit is what matters most in an area that is so religiously and culturally instituted, then that culture and religion from the Palestinians will be completely gentrified. And that also begs a very interesting question that if Israel is willing to do that to Palestine, why aren't they willing to do that themselves? The only way for this to be something that everybody can accept is if Israel's willing to remove the identity from the country, and they're not. So if they're not willing to do that for their own country, but is going to force this on the Gaza areas and the Palestinians, well, it does seem like they're just trying to remove Palestinians from the area and turn this into the, dare I say, next Las Vegas for tourists. It's an area for tourists, not the people that actually live there. And for someone who's from Hawaii, for example, I can understand why there's a lot of dissatisfaction with tourists who can ruin the area, so to speak, or ruin the culture, so to speak, or just ruin it for the people who live there. A lot of concern, a lot of things to talk about. I know at the very least, I don't trust anything that Kushner, Trump, and Witkoff got going on. Let's continue regarding Iran, Ukraine, and expand the conversation a little bit. On February 17, 2026, Kushner and Witkoff conducted an extraordinary double-barrel day of negotiations in Geneva, meeting with Iranian officials in the morning over the nuclear standoff, then Russia and Ukrainian delegations in the afternoon about the endless war that's going on, about ending the war. On Iran, some progress were reported. Iran indicated a willingness to suspend enrichment for 1 to 5 years, but Trump has demanded Iran end all nuclear enrichment, cease its ballistic missile program, and stop supporting regional proxies. Witkoff and Kushner reportedly told Trump it'll be difficult, if not impossible, to reach a deal, and Trump has left open the possibility of military action, having already moved a massive naval armada into the Persian Gulf. So things are just heating up. I will not dismiss the idea that the best way to control foreign leaders is to control their money. So there might be something to the strategy of adding these people, even though I think it's unethical. But there's no denying that people don't give a fuck about ethics when it comes down to having this much power. But Trump is too much of an idiot and too fucking prideful to actually take advantage of the situation he's currently in. On Russia Ukraine, this was the third round of trilateral talks following sessions in the UAE, but expectations remain low. Key unresolved issues include the status of Ukraine's Donbas region, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, and Western security guarantees for Kiev. Trump has slowed military pressure on Russia by halting direct arms provision to Ukraine, which critics say weakens the U.S. negotiating power. Zelensky said Ukraine is ready for a deal, but insists Russia must stop strikes on civilian infrastructure. Complicating Kushner's diplomatic role is a bombshell whistleblower complaint filed against Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard in May 2025. So people are not happy with what Kushner is doing. The complaint centers on an NSA interpreted conversation between two foreign nationals who discussed Kushner in the context of Iran. The whistleblower alleges that when Gabbard learned about the intercept, rather than allowing it to be distributed through normal intelligence channels, she took a printout to the White House Chief of Staff, Susan Wills, and then restricted access to the report for 8 months, keeping it locked in a safe. Oh, we remember authenticity? Remember transparency? Remember when that used to exist? Remember that's what people asked for regarding the administration? How times have changed, right? How times have changed. The U.S. officials told the Wall Street Journal and New York Times that the allegations about Kushner in The Intercept would be significant if verified, but there is currently no corroborating evidence. Senior Trump administration officials call the claims demonstrably false, but won't provide details, saying doing so could expose a sensitive surveillance method. Right. The complaint also alleges the NSA's general counsel failed to report a possible crime discussed in The Intercept to the Department of Justice. The partisan split is stark. Republican Senate Intelligence Committee Chair Tom Cotton reviewed the complaint and called it not credible, while Democratic ranking member Mark Warner said the version lawmakers saw was so heavily redacted he couldn't access its credibility. Redactions! Where does that sound familiar? They love to do it. They love to hide the information, even from other governmental officials. Hey, you control information, you hide it from the public. That's how you manipulate and do things in the background. The whistleblower's attorney, Andrew Bakaj, has accused Gabbard of obstructing the whistleblower's ability to brief Congressional Intelligence Committee directly and has threatened to sue if full access isn't granted. Gabbard's office also calls the allegations baseless and politically motivated. This remains an active and developing story, but this is something you better pay attention to. So that is all we got for research on a dime. That is all we got about Jared Kushner. I think you guys can understand that Kushner is very much in a weird position who has way too much power for someone not a part of the government. And it should be clear with all the very tied loose ends that he is here to negotiate in the terms of controlling financial assets and negotiating in terms of like financial power. But I am very concerned, very much so, that the only reason why they're doing this is not because they want to negotiate with like the monetary influence being a part of it. I am guessing, and this is just allegations. I don't know for sure. I could probably look it up at some point, and I'll verify this point of this evidence. My guess is Donald Trump and his family are heavily invested into Kushner's firms as well. My guess is that a lot of the negotiations, a lot of things that they're trying to do also involves in raising the money, the profits, the value to help Trump and his own investments. My guess is this is not about negotiating for the greater good. It's negotiating for more wealth. So, very unethical, very corrupt, but I guess we shouldn't be surprised because Donald Trump is the most corrupt president in United States history. That's all we got for research on the dime. We're about to move on to our next segment, Nuanced News, but hopefully some people learned a little bit about the guy, Jared Kushner, and I think we all could agree that this guy is very sketchy.